Started. Okay.
Welcome everybody. This is my first webinar using a pad instead of a computer. So if you can't see me or I look a little odd, or it looks like I should be looking more at you, it's merely the technology. And Tammy and I were in a meeting earlier, so I just needed to jump on here as quick as I could. Anyway, thanks guys. As Tammy said, we are going to be here through the holidays to support you and answer questions. I think it's probably the most important time for us to be able to show up for you, so I'm glad to do that. As you all probably know, my name is Dr. Rob, or Dr. Rob Weiss. I'm an expert in intimacy disorders, specifically sex, love, and relationship addiction, and all of the iterations of early trauma that lead to those issues, as well as infidelity and cheating and relationship problems of that nature. My time here is given to you because for me, it's an opportunity to help without having to be paid. Or doing service, as some of you might call it. It's also an opportunity for you to interact with an expert that you don't get to have. You may not have the resources, or I might have the time. This is a chance to ask, like someone who writes the books and opens the treatment centers, any question you want about the work we do wherever we're doing it. And sorry, Tam, I'm just thinking it's a little bit more easily viewed. But anyway, let's go ahead with some questions. I am ready to rock.
Yeah, clearly your screen was rocking. So, okay, now we've got stability. All right, first question. Our relationship went straight into the garbage the moment I caught my boyfriend looking at jailbait sites, very underage, low teens, and skimpy clothes. After that, he went into recovery for alcohol and porn. My question is, are jailbait sites part of the regular escalation that is part of porn addiction, or should I be extra concerned? Is there a specific therapy or approaches that need to happen because he was looking at jailbait, or can it be lumped in with other escalations that go along with porn addiction?
That's a very good question. So I'm not going to give you a definitive answer because I don't know your husband or what he was looking at, but I can give a general answer, which is that one of the most search engine terms for online sex is, in other words, if someone is searching for sex, what are some of the most popular words they often put in there with sex? And one of the most popular search engine terms is the word youth. It is not unusual for men to want to see young men or women because we are attracted to youth. It's a biological function of us wanting to have babies. So it doesn't surprise me if a sex addict who is really having a lot of problems with porn were to escalate into images that are late teen. To me, that would be okay, bad, not okay, really problematic. Shows how escalated your problem has become, but it wouldn't necessarily indicate to me that that is someone who's only interested in children or has a predilection for kids. I can understand that escalation. However, if the images are younger, if they're 13, 14, 12, 11, 15, if you're getting into underage, not just what I consider jailbait, which is 17 or 18, but really younger images, that's when I begin to worry. Because most men are not looking at younger images unless they're really interested in younger images. Whereas a 17-year-old who looks like a 23-year-old, I can understand him sort of ending up with that. So, I think it's really a matter of who he is, what he struggles with. And I think these are questions you have to ask him. And maybe in a therapy office to say, okay, you looked at 15-year-olds, is that what turns you on? It is not. It is normal and healthy for an adult male to be attracted to mature young ladies who are under the age of 18. It makes sense that we would be attracted to them, a fully developed young woman. What is not normal or healthy is acting on it. So it's one thing for me to say, oh, well, boy, God bless those 16-year-olds, they're sure looking beautiful today. It's a very different thing for me to start acting on it. So as I said, I think it's really individual. I know people who really have an interest in underage and they kind of always were skating that edge, and they have lots and lots of pictures of that, but very few images of adults. I know other people who really look into adults behavior, but occasionally they have escalated into what you call jailbait, which is 16, 17, 18. Not okay behavior, but not necessarily indicating that that person is a pedophile or a hebephile.
Okay, thank you. No other questions. Anybody have questions? Start putting them in the,
I didn't see any questions either. I wonder if this is, do we have any problems with our thing?
I,
No, I
I
don't think
don't,
so.
no, I had
Okay.
one in the Q&A, so.
Okay, so you guys know how this works. If you put questions in, we'll answer them. This isn't particularly a lecture so much. I can certainly talk about anything related to intimacy, sex, if you prompt me, but this is an opportunity for your questions to get answered around how did I get to be this way? How do I deal with my husband? What about my wife and her ex-boyfriend? It's really about what's going on in your lives related to these issues. So you post, we answer.
Here's the question. Should my treatment be different if I'm a sex addict versus a love addict? I thought I was a sex addict, but in answer yes to all the loved addict tests.
Let me explain what I think the difference between a love addict and a sex addict is. I've been both. In some ways, and I'll be casual and fun about this, but I know it's serious. Love addiction is like the graduate school for sex addicts, meaning that sex addiction is about objectifying body parts, and underneath that, within that objectification lies the fantasy for a sex addict. That if I get that person to be attracted to me or want me or be sexual with me, that I will be more important, feel more special. I'm going to be really excited about getting my needs met with this stranger. It's all about the sex and the physical attraction or the possibility of getting to sex. Love addiction is also about objectifying people, but it's about objectifying them from a love point of view. Meaning, when I'm a sex addict, I don't see who you are or what you are. I just see your butt, your boobs, your whatever that I want to flirt with, and I'm really flirting with your body parts so I can get you to want me to have sex with you, and that's a win for me. But love addiction is more like I objectify you and how you make me feel. So I don't really see you for who you are. I more see you as an object to deliver me love. So the reason we call it love addiction is because it's not unusual for those of us who have bad problems discerning a healthy partner to chase unavailable partners endlessly. And one of the reasons we chase unavailable partners is because when they show us a little bit of that early love and that stuff that goes on with dating, we throw Christmas tree lights over them. This is what love addicts do. And we just see them as the best, most wonderful person in the whole world. Well, unfortunately, they may have some serious problems that we don't see because we just see what they're giving us, not necessarily who they are. So both love addiction and sex addiction are disorders of misinterpretation, meaning I'm looking at that person, and if they have sex with me, I'm more important and special. Well, that's not true. Looking at a person saying, oh, if I can just get them to love me and keep me loving me, then everything's going to be fine. That's not true. Really getting to know who someone is and deciding that who that person is someone you want to pursue a relationship with, not what they give you or how you feel when you're with them, but who they are. That's the root out of love addiction.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Will your drop-in group for SA and porn addiction men be ran like a 12-step group? No, for those of you, I'll answer this one because for those of you that have not gone to one of the drop-in groups, we have one for partners, we have one for men, sex addiction at 10:45 a.m. Pacific time Mondays, and then this new one that started Sundays at 8 p.m. on Pacific time for porn and sex addiction. It will be just like the other drop-in groups where, unlike this where you can't see each other, you'll be able to see each other and you'll be able to talk. But unlike a 12-step meeting where there's no crosstalk, you can ask people for feedback and you can support other people. So it's different than a 12-step group. These meetings are not affiliated with any particular, SA, SL, AA, SAA, or any of those. So it's just an opportunity for connection and community. And then the partner drop-in group Brittany Mangum is offering that 12:30 on Wednesdays. She's going to have it this Wednesday, and she's also going to do it December 26th. So there'll be two of them. Yeah, I really appreciated her doing that. So if you go to the schedule that's on sexandrelationshiphealing.com, if you haven't already registered, here's your plug to do that. But then you'll get an email about the schedule for the week and also daily. But so not specifically a 12-step, but an opportunity to connect with other people that identify within that group. Oh, there's also a gay men's group. I forgot to mention that. Miro has that on alternating Wednesdays. So David Fawcett has a webinar this Wednesday, but alternating Wednesdays, Miro has, a gay men's drop-in group. Yeah. So.
And I just want to say, none of this is meant to replace 12-step in any way.
Right.
It's more to fill in the gaps. Like, some of you have never been to a 12-step meeting. Some of you don't feel it would be useful for you. Some of you just need to feel comfortable around other people talking about this. To me, this is all that we're offering is an opportunity to, an invitation to learn more and be more a part of a community that's healing, just like a 12-step program. But boy, we really hope you go there and get your recovery there as well. We see this as additive, not instead of.
Right. And for some people, there aren't 12-step, S group meetings, or partner meetings. So if you're in a more rural place, there's one meeting a week. Well, that isn't necessarily, enough support. So I agree, it's a supplement. So next question, specific about the jailbait. He was looking at 12 to 16-year-old in underwear, looking at, body parts. He said he was turned on by it. After first lying, he wasn't very remorseful, just said sorry. Do you have any more info? I'm worried and don't know if I should be.
I'm sorry, I missed the first sentence of that. Can you?
More specific about the jailbait. So this is the same person that asked about jailbait.
Okay.
So he was looking at 12 to 16-year-old in underwear and looking specifically at crotches and butts. He said he was turned on.
It would make me very uncomfortable. If I was a mother, I would want this man to be evaluated. If I had children between 12 and 18 at home, I would ask him to think carefully before he felt insulted by that, because my desire to have him evaluated would be because I want to keep him around, not because I want him to go away. But my overarching question would be, are my children safe? If it's merely a question of, is he attracted to you or not? Many men are attracted to younger people and they're attracted to adults. I am concerned about the 12, 13, 14. These are not images that you just kind of casually end up looking at. You have to be looking at young teen and wanting young teen. Jailbait, as you talk about it, 16 and 17-year-olds can come up in regular porn just because they don't say their age, but younger children, no. And if it went to that, and also look at the majority, if 90% of his viewing is adults and 10% is kids, there's a problem, but it's not the same as if 90% of the viewing is 12 to 16 and 10% is adults or none of it is adults. So, but all of it is concerning, and there are, I would recommend, there's a place online called Safer Society, society.org, and they have a lot of pamphlets and handouts and support information for people who are questioning whether someone they might know or be involved with is an offender, as well as information for offenders themselves. So Safer Society is a good place to go to gather more information. Tammy just put it up for you. I would also recommend going to ATSA.org, the American Society for the Treatment of Sexual Abusers. They also have resources if you're looking at offending. Because we are more focused on addiction, and only about 10% or 5% of our folks cross the line into offending, we really try to leave that world to the people who are more professional at working with offenders.
Okay. I would be grateful if you would address the role of a good therapist should play in helping break through my sex and meth addict husband's denial and or unwillingness, inability to stop acting out. Will a good therapist tolerate 50 rationalizations for not stopping or cutting down? Will a good therapist right from the get-go insist on husband getting clean? Last week, SA husband's therapist, who he'd been seeing since June, formally closed his case. Recommendation was inpatient or intensive outpatient program. And if the husband got clean, he would be willing to help him. Therapist further said he didn't believe private practice psychotherapy would work because he was erratic in attendance and lack of communication. Prospective therapists are saying same. If he's willing to get clean, they'll see him. Husband has, it's just scrolled. Husband has no one he is accountable to, married and together 31 years. This acting out started 3 years ago. I am sorry.
I'm sorry, did she say meth?
Yes, meth.
Okay, so let me speak to that. First of all, I want you to understand that meth is a little bit different than other drugs in that if you use it very regularly, it is almost guaranteed to cause depression because it kills off the parts of the brain that allow us to experience pleasure. It so over functions the brain around pleasure when people do meth that the brain fails in its ability to provide pleasure without it. So part of the challenge for someone who does meth is they literally, or actually this is true, they really can't find much pleasure in life if they're doing meth regularly in regular life. Their brain is so burnt out when they go to life that celebrating a kid's birthday or, having an anniversary or going on a vacation or spending time with friends, those just don't feel good. Sex doesn't feel good. Nothing feels good to the person who's doing a lot of meth. So part of the issue is that there's a drug involved. And so let me tell you Rob's rule, Dr. Rob's rule when it comes to drugs. I can't help somebody with problems, with behavior problems involving food or gambling or gaming or sex or anything involving behavior when they are actively using. The problem is that using drugs is disinhibiting. In other words, I can teach you how to not do things, and how to avoid them and how to get help to avoid them and how to support your not doing certain things sexually or whatever it is. But once you take that drug, my lessons go right out of your head. You're just going to do what you feel like doing. And so the therapist is correct. At a certain point, if I can't get someone to stay sober on drugs and alcohol in private practice, I have to get them to a place where they can get sober. And you have to understand that outpatient therapy, in my opinion, is one where we raise the bar as far as we can. In other words, if you're struggling when you're seeing me once a week, I might have you see me twice a week. If you need more support, I might say you need to go to 12-step meetings every night. But there comes a certain point where I've pulled out all of my stops in terms of what I can offer you, helping you as an outpatient therapist. And I say, look, you're seeing me more than once a week. You've got a support group. Say you want to get better and you're still struggling. Now we've done all we can outpatient. You need to go get more help. So I completely understand the therapist who might say, I can't help you more until you go get sober, and then it's all in. The question for you is, how do you get him sober? And, if you want to write us about that, we work with people who help, interventionists, that kind of thing. We'll see what we can do to help.
And I'm going to put in a plug for David Fawcett, who's doing the webinar on Wednesday night. He wrote the book on, meth and sex.
Meth and lust.
Yeah. And, he's an expert. He did a podcast with Rob, and you can listen to that for free. And I kept backing it up and re-listening to sections of it because, it was so interesting. And I kept thinking I couldn't have heard that right. For example, he talks about, we all talk about the opiate crisis, and it is a crisis in the U.S. But he said in many states, meth use deaths exceed opiates, and nobody's talking about that. And particularly treating the meth and sex together is really a challenge and needs to occur because often people can't get sober from one or the other. The treatment is different. So know that we're working on having a chemsex program. That's what we call it, chemsex. So that will be opening in Florida, hopefully in the first half of 2019, but you need help now. So reach out to us, but also listen to, or join the webinar on Wednesday night with Dr. Fawcett. So
I'll also say just a couple of things. I've done podcasts with Dr. Fawcett. So there is a Men, Meth, and Lust podcast, and our podcast is Sex, Love, and Addiction. Podcasts are free. If you want to talk to Dr. Fawcett, who is the leading therapist in chemsex, meth, sex, coke, sex, he's on our website once a week, as Tammy said, or every other week. So, let us support you if we can and direct you in whatever way we can. We know people. But my heart does go out to you. And let me say one more thing about that. I have seen many, many times men in particular who were doing pretty well in life, like, maybe they drank a bit or they had some issues, get involved with meth and completely fall down. not be able to work, spend all their money on drugs and prostitutes. That drug will take you down. And so I have seen people who are otherwise functional and happy in a 30-year relationship, but 3 years into meth abuse, they're not functional in any way. And they need help.
Yeah. So my SA husband and I are about 3.5 months into recovery. We recently spent the weekend together and lots of it was good, but some of it felt disconnected again. Do you have any suggestions, practices for staying present, connected in the moment? How to press pause and roll back to realness when trying to restore a romantic relationship?
Well, I think that's a big question because partners of sex addicts have particular issues related to us, like trust and betrayal. And sometimes the disconnect comes up for you. You know, we're kissing and smooching and you start thinking about that person I was with 5 years ago and all of a sudden you disconnect. Sometimes it's me who disconnects because I'm with you and then I start fantasizing with someone else, or I start thinking about how scary intimacy is and how every reason I don't want to be with you, because not because you're my spouse and I love you, but because intimacy is scary and it's easier to be sexual with a stranger for many of us than it is to be sexual with our partners, because you guys can hurt us and let us down. Some stranger never will. We have control with strangers. We don't feel control with you. So I would let yourself understand that gaps in connection are a part of the healing process. I think what's most important is not necessarily to run and try to fix it, but just to acknowledge it. You know, the first step is not to do anything except say, gee, we seem a little disconnected now. Before we were more connected, I wonder what's going on. You don't have to rush to fix every moment. I think it's more important just to acknowledge the moments, and then they tend to start to fix themselves. The first step is by beginning to bring it up. Yeah, and Tammy, you saw that I wrote on the chat about Dr.
I
Fawcett.
did, but it only went to me. And
Oh,
so
okay.
I just copied and pasted it so everybody got to see that as well. So,
Thank you.
okay. All right. And so on that question too, so Kristen Snowden does a webinar on alternating weeks on Wednesdays, and she talks about this, and she's excellent at helping couples. So connect with that. And then the one with John Taylor today, his is called Rockin' Relationships, and he gives very practical tools, whether it's for your coupleship or it's, you know, work relationships or family members. There's tools that you can use. So check those out as well.
I want you all to understand that we understand, because we've been doing this a long time, that it isn't enough to teach someone how to stop doing something, that we have to teach healthy sexuality, healthy intimacy, and healthy relationships beyond the betrayal, beyond the hurt, beyond the addiction. And that's why I've invited some experts who are not just expert like Dr. Fawcett in pathology, like chemsex, but also some experts like Kristen who really focus on healthy relationships and healthy sexuality, so that you can not only look at the bad parts, but also look at how to develop the good parts.
Okay, so this one was in the chat, so I'm going to pull this in. With 90-day detox from sex addiction or masturbation, how do I not go crazy, and how do I know what activities I should do more of?
Well, that's a great question. So let me break that down. First of all, as an early recovering addict, I'm not always best at knowing what activities are good for me or not. What I need to do in early recovery is establish a community of people who can help me with that. So wherever I have struggled, let's say I struggle on my way home from work to want to stop somewhere for sex, well, I just call that person on my way home from work, that recovering person, and I say, hey, you know, I'm going home. I'm going to be driving through that part of town. I'll call you when I get home to make sure that I'm safe. So I don't expect any of us can do this on our own. You have to build a community of people who will help you, whether that's through us, through 12-step, or hopefully both. But I think there's another part of that question that I wanted to answer. Tammy, can you read it again?
Sure. It was going through 90 days of detox from sex or masturbation. How do I not go crazy? And how do I know what activities I should do more of? So,
well, you might go a little crazy. I think you can expect that. And withdrawal from sex addiction, just to say it, and porn addiction, is often an emotional state of longing, loneliness, emptiness. This is what I often feel, because I will often hear from clients, and I remember myself, because if you think about it, you've been dosing yourself with attention, validation, connection, thrilling, excitement, sex, whatever. Now you're pulling yourself away from that. And so you're going to experience some of the opposite. It's like getting off an antihistamine and all of a sudden your nose is stuffed up. It's kind of you've been dosing your brain with intensity and pleasure around perceived connection. Now you're pulling all of that, even if it was just an image. Now you're pulling all that back. Your brain is going to feel longing, leave you feeling longing, empty, lonely. So what is the best thing you could do? Connect in non-sexual ways and go out and have some fun. Go to a movie, go on a hike, go shopping with friends, go enjoy life, and then also do the recovery things with the recovery people that you will lean on for support. This is a process. It takes time. It takes a lot of work to build. And I think that, and I'll say one more thing to you. I don't know who your therapist is, and I'm not going to tell you how your therapy should run, but for me, 90 days was always a long time to say to somebody, you're going to be sober and not have sex or anything. So I used to tell folks to just take it a week at a time, which meant they just had to not be sexual, whatever it was, from Monday to Monday. And then they had to readdress it with me or someone in their recovery. I want to have sex now. Well, but you said 90 days. I know, but I did this week. Okay, can you get another week? You're not going to get 90 days by looking at 90 days. You will get 90 days by looking at tomorrow and maybe the end of the week. And beyond that, don't worry about it, because anybody would go crazy thinking, oh my God, I can't have this thing forever. That's how it feels. But I can't have this thing today. That you can probably get through, and then worry about tomorrow. It's not that your commitment changes. It's just your means of supporting yourself through that commitment is different. Tammy, do you have a thought about that?
I have lots of thoughts on that. As a recovery person, it's breaking it down. There's a reason why around the 12 steps, there's one day at a time, because, all I have to do is stay in recovery today. The thinking forever. I went to treatment when I was 21, and thinking that I could never drink again or use drugs was like, I couldn't get my mind wrapped around that. But they said, can you do it just for today? And I thought, well, I probably can. And then there were days when it was like, can you do it for the next 5 minutes? Yes. And it really is like, if I focus on today, and for me, then finding some gratitude, that was always really huge too. Cause like, if I'm whining about why it's so unfair, well, that was not a good place for me to go to. But you're raising.
To support that, I think, if you can find anything you can do that will help other people, you will think less about yourself. I mean, it's just the simplest thing. If you can, work in a soup kitchen over Christmas, or just do, you will find your problems disappear before your eyes, because you are focused on other people's problems, not yours. And all of a sudden, life seems a lot better when you're helping somebody who struggles. Why do you think all us therapists become therapists? We work through our issues, and here we are, understanding that we will get a gift by helping others every day. So you too will probably get the gift of some of that obsession being lifted if you look for some ways that you can be supportive to others.
Somebody when I was in early recovery told me I was a real small package. They said it in a meeting, so it wasn't directed really at me, or it really was. They said, you're a really small package when you're all wrapped up in yourself. And that, I know. And that was a long time ago, and I still remember it. And it helps me remember that if I'm only focused on me, I don't have a lot to give anybody else, and I'm not being the best me. So to your comment, because there's a comment in here that you follow up with, there's no one in my area, no 12-step programs in my town. That's okay. Because there's drop-in groups that we've mentioned several times. Rob is in the rooms on Friday nights at 6 p.m. Pacific time. He has 100 and some people there, and
every 12-step meeting has online.
I was just going to say, if you go to sexandrelationshiphealing.com, there's a list of resources where it'll give you links to SA, SAA, SLAA, and you can go to their websites and find their online meetings. So, but within the rooms, there's meetings. Even if go hang out at an AA meeting, and it's all recovery. So you may not be able to talk specifically about your addiction, but hey, it's a better choice. I had somebody that reached out and said, I was thinking of relapsing. I listened to your podcast. Great. All of those things, whatever
I can beat that, Tammy. I had someone to say to me, I was feeling like acting out, and I listened to 11 of your podcasts.
Well, there you go.
As many as it takes,
Yes.
But and yeah, let's move on. That's great.
Okay. Would these things apply to someone who did a lot of meth 20 years ago and then switched to alcohol and is an alcoholic? Is that, you're talking about the
Brain damage?
brain
You know,
damage from
if you can be
meth.
these things, if you can be more specific about that, that would help.
Yeah, that would be helpful. So,
Why don't we move on and then we'll write
okay.
them.
So I'm married to a sex addict. I found out 3 years ago, and he continued to lie and cheat off and on. Looks like relapse is another word for continue, and hope he doesn't get caught. When he does get caught, it's, I guess this is relapse, and I'm supposed to get used to this behavior and support it. Yuck. What's the best way of handling supposed relapse?
So Tammy, I'm going to ask you to read into this one since I'm not reading the words.
Okay.
Do you think that this is someone who believes that their partner is not taking their recovery seriously enough, not working hard enough, having lots of slips, which are unintended return to the behavior, but then making excuses? You think that's how this partner feels, like, well, they're just calling it a slip and I just have to put up with it?
Yeah, and I wonder if there's any real recovery in there, or if it's, I just didn't get caught for a little while, so I'm going to pretend like I was in recovery, and my partner is just supposed to, when they find out, oops, I slipped.
So ladies, I'm not going to market here, but I will tell you this. I wrote a book called Out of the Doghouse, a step-by-step relationship saving guide for men caught cheating. And I wrote this book because most of the men I work with don't have a clue how to help you feel as a woman, if you are a woman who's being cheated on, the healing of betrayal, or even begin to feel safe. Most of the men I work with are so busy defending, oh, I stopped doing that. I'm not doing that anymore. Why are you going after that? When are you going to stop being mad at me? Most men are so full of defense that they just can't stop and say, wow, I did this. I'm working on it. I'm struggling. They're not being real. And so I wrote a book for you guys to buy, you ladies to buy, to throw at these guys and say, you don't have a clue what I'm going through. Here's what it is. So, if you think that your husband does not really understand, if you think what Tammy said is true, that he's more trying to keep you quiet than focus on his own recovery, we have a saying, and you can give this to him. Whatever you put in front of your recovery, you will lose. So if he puts trying to keep you quiet in his mind ahead of actually working on himself, he will lose you. And he needs to know that this is a serious issue and you're not going to put up with, yeah. And by the way, slips are very serious. If I have a slip, I tell my sponsor, my friends, we all gather around, we figure out what happened. It's not like I slipped today, I'll get better tomorrow. I mean, that's bullshit. So I do also know, and I want to say in defense of the addicts, that there are partners, and I understand this completely, who want us to never act out again and do it perfectly forever. And the truth is, if you have a lifetime of sexual acting out, sometimes even before we met you, most often, we may not get, in fact, I can guarantee you, we're not going to get perfect sobriety. What I encourage is more the telling of the truth. So, but if, how do I say this? If he's coming to you, every few months and saying, I'm really struggling, and then you hear about a slip, that's a very different thing than, I had a slip, oh, I had a slip, oh, I had a slip. That's not okay. So I trust how you feel and your response to this, that your pain is not being taken seriously, and the realities of what he's put the family through are not being taken seriously. I think you can show him what it looks like to take it seriously. Let him know. By the way, if I look like I'm doing something weird, I'm scratching my puppy, who's over here wanting my attention. And I know everybody, right? So Dozer, come here. You want to say hi to everybody? Hold on. Here you go. There's your dog. Here, dog.
Hi, Dozer.
Ooh, what? What was that? Wait, one more second. Come on. Hold on. Okay. You don't want to talk about the dog, but I have a dog.
Okay, so that leads into the next question. Can you explain what gaslighting is, how to identify it, and the emotional scarring it causes?
Yes, I can. So gaslighting comes from a movie done in the 1930s by Alfred Hitchcock called Gaslight, with Ingrid Bergman and...
I don't remember, but yeah.
I do. Casablanca.
I'm going to look it up. Just keep talking.
Okay. The point of the movie is it's about a man who marries a wealthy woman, and he decides that he's going to get all of her money and all of her worldly goods by driving her crazy. So every time she hears something or sees something, or Humphrey Bogart, who was also in Casablanca. So what he
Charles Boyer.
So what he decides to do is set her up so that every time she sees something, he says, oh, that's not really true. And when she hears something, so he gets her to consistently doubt herself so persistently that she doesn't realize that he's actually the cause of the problem, or the one who wants to really take advantage of her. So that term has been taken into the addiction world and the cheating and infidelity world as gaslighting, which means I don't want you to know that I stopped at the adult bookstore on my way home tonight. So I'm just going to say something like, I never said I'd be home at 6, even though I did. So you're thinking, well, wait a minute, I thought I heard him say 6. I am telling you that what your truth is wrong. And if I do that enough, if you say, boy, you woke up in a bad mood this morning. I wasn't in a bad mood. I don't know what you're talking about. If you consistently and persistently cause your partner to doubt themselves and doubt what they see and doubt what they hear, you're gaslighting them. If you are doing it to protect something that you want. So I gaslight my partner so I can get away with cheating. I gaslight my partner so I can get away with this affair. Every time they start to smell it, I say, oh, no, that's you're just not getting it. You're making this up. You're being too jealous. And I keep pushing them away because I don't want them to discover my secret. The sad thing about gaslighting is that it can drive partners crazy, because you lose faith in your intuition. You lose faith in what feels right to you. Black seems white, white seems black. What's going on? And I really don't think it's the goal of your spouse to drive you crazy. Your spouse doesn't see you at all. What he or she is trying to do is get away with what they're doing and convince you that it isn't really going on. And so in order to get away with what they're doing and convince you that it isn't going on, they will tell you that what you see isn't there and what you hear isn't there, and therefore you are being gaslighted.
Okay. So next question. Do you have any actual statistics, which that's always challenging, SA porn addiction recovery after third discovery day? Partner of sex porn addict and behavior over the last 4 years has involved random unknown women from dating affair websites all the way up to meeting prostitutes off of hobby boards in parking lots for just hand jobs. Is there any real hope of recovery? I'm completely at the point where I feel like he is hopeless. And even if he does truly commit to recovery, I don't think I can live the rest of my life waiting for the next relapse.
Relapse, let me just say this. If you have the right help, if you have, well, let me back up even further. Sorry. Tammy and I, and the people that we work with can give you at no cost information, support groups. We can tell you who does good therapy in your area. We're going to be opening some treatment centers. We can tell you some of the work we're doing or other people are doing that. We can lead you guys to water as a couple. But what I can never do as a therapist is really create deep, enduring motivation. I can get somebody to look at their behavior differently. I can use motivational interviewing, but to get somebody to really be motivated to want to change their life, unfortunately, it often takes pain. And that person has to be so uncomfortable with what they're doing that they're willing to try something new. The person who is motivated and has access to really good help and wants to get well, even if they're struggling, you will feel their desire to get well. You will see their motivation. You will believe in what they're trying to do because it's infectious. And the person who's trying to pull one over on you and go to a meeting occasionally and just continue to act out and says that, slips are a part of recovery, you're going to feel that too. So let me just tell you the difference between a slip and a relapse. It is not unusual for a sex addict to have a slip. We may return to the porn once. We may go out and see a prostitute once. We may call that affair partner, but a slip means, oh my God, I just recognized what I just did. What was I thinking? That's clearly a mistake. I'm back in my old behavior. Let me get help. And immediately surrounding a slip, I tell my spouse, I tell my therapist, I tell my sponsor, it's all out in the open, and we examine what happened in order to try to keep it from happening again. That happens to us occasionally, even when we're motivated and working hard. But relapse is when I get away with some negative behavior that I shouldn't be doing, and I don't tell anybody, and I don't do anything about it, and I let it keep happening because I got away with it. And then all of a sudden, it's back to being a norm for me. That is not a slip. That is a relapse because the person is not doing anything to truly try to bring themselves back into change. You have to wait, dog. I'm not ready for you yet. Sorry, go ahead. You hear him whining in there? Sorry.
Yeah.
I'll kick him out.
No, it's all good.
Come here.
Okay. So are you done answering that one?
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm going to just tag on. So, if he is motivated and wants a treatment program, because it sounds like, whatever he's doing isn't working right now, reach out to me. I'm happy to give you a suggestion. So, okay. From your experience with working with sex addicts over the years, how important is it to seek treatment for depression? Do you recommend taking meds, or do you think it will go away within a period of sobriety?
That's a great question. So I'm not the one to tell you whether you should be on meds or not, or whether you, how much of it has to do with your withdrawal or changes in your lifestyle. But I will say this, about half of the clients that I work with over the years, and I've worked with, 1,000 or so, about half of them have ended up with underlying depression, anxiety, and, as we examined them and their behavior stopped, and we got to look at who they were and how their lives, this is my dog pulling on my arm. As we got to examine, what was going on with them, we realized that there was more than simply the remorse about what they had done or the shame after acting out, that they were struggling with depression. And here's the thing. So it is harder to stay in recovery if you're struggling with an underlying issue. So recovery is hard enough. But if when you start to recover, all you do is think how horrible you are, and you don't feel good about yourself, and you don't feel well, and you feel like, if you're doing the right stuff and you're still feeling awful, I think it's a great idea to get evaluated for meds. I've been on meds for depression and anxiety for about 18 years. My life is significantly better because I simply have been able to replace the brain chemistry that wasn't working with something that helped it work. I get sober longer, I'm happier, I enjoy my life, and I'm much more productive. That may not be true for everyone, but it was true for me, and it's true for about half of my clients. I do think that if you're depressed, it's not likely to go away. Look, depression is different than how you feel when you're newly sober. When you're newly sober, you feel longing, withdrawal, missing something, wish it were here. But that's not the same as I hate myself, I don't feel like living, I hate everybody. Depression is much more profound. And by the way, meds can help with depression and sex addiction, because it is true, whether you like it or not, that some of the antidepressants cause a minor sexual dysfunction. They can reduce sexual drive. For some sex addicts, that's not such a bad thing, especially in the beginning. So, yeah, I think you should check it out. I think you should understand what it means. I think you need to know that being on meds is not recovery. You still have to do all the work. You still have to show up, but it may mean that you're going to be a happier person in the process.
I agree. And I know, like you said a little bit, the initial, it's challenging if it's very early recovery, but, if you've been in recovery for, I don't even know what kind of a little reasonable period of time, and you're still in a funk, then it seems like getting an evaluation, would be totally worth it. So. Oh, here's one. Husband refusing treatment. That is always sad. He is an SA. We are separating. Communication is completely disintegrated. We have children. He has taken the role of victim. Any advice to reestablish communication?
Well, I don't know your situation, so I can't speak to it, but I certainly work with people sometimes who are so invested in what they're doing, and their ego is so invested that they're unwilling to change. And I know that partners and families need to protect themselves. And I absolutely believe it's the right thing to say, look, I don't want to live with this, the threat of disease, you're getting arrested, whatever all that stuff is. If you're not willing to make this better, I don't want this to be the life that me and my children are going through. I also think living with an active addict as a mom means a lot of the energy that you could put into your children is being distracted by this person who's doing crazy stuff. And I've seen moms crying all day and angry all day because he is out acting out. And then the kids see a crying, unhappy mom rather than someone who's loving. At least somebody in the family needs to show up for them. So I validate and support everything that you're able to do to protect yourself from his acting out and his unwillingness or lack of motivation, and your family. I don't know, as far as opening a door, I always have an invitation out to every addict in my life, whether they're acting out or not, to spend time with me, be supported. And, I care about them. I respect them, because in other words, I don't withdraw love from people because they're troubled, or even if they're unwilling to get help. It's just not my belief. And I certainly wouldn't withdraw someone from their children. However, how you set that up and how you structure it and how you protect yourself needs to be very clear. And it needs to be very clear to him that he has created this situation. It's not your fault that you don't want to live with this person who's doing this. It's his responsibility to change his behavior or do whatever it takes to get the help.
I wonder about working with somebody, and whether it's a therapist or whomever, but with a specific goal of co-parenting, because you are co-parenting. So how can you navigate the dialogues around the kids and take out all the stuff that, you did, he did, whatever. I mean, all of that type of thing. But if it's just simply, we want to have a dialogue, we want to have a format, a forum for how we can discuss, here are the rules, here's what we will say, here's what we won't say, whatever, but that it can be simply about the kids. And so a thought, but that's just one thought. So what do you think about doing couples counseling at the same time that the person is seeing a sex addiction therapist?
I think couples therapy in the earliest stages is about setting boundaries and structure for communication, for working through issues. I don't think that in the early stages couples therapy is that productive, because mostly, as an activity, because mostly what happens is partners are saying, I hate you, why did you ruin my life? And the addict is saying, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean it, I guess I'm fucked up or messed up. And it kind of go, will you forgive me? No, it just doesn't, you're not ready. The couple is in the very beginning ready for, this is when we talk about it, this is when we don't, I'm going to disclose, this is how I'm going to do it and when, this is how I tell you about my sobriety, this is, when you're angry with me, I can't hear it, when you do it this way, I can hear it. Negotiating the boundaries and structure of re-entering a relationship that has changed radically is useful in a sort of structural, strategic, I think, this is my belief system, sort of organization way. How do we take care of the kids? Should I sleep in the bedroom with you? All of these day-to-day things. But getting into deep underlying emotional issues, I believe in the first month or two, it's just too early. The partner has too many feelings about the hurt that they've experienced and a lot of things they need to work through and often things they need to learn more about. And the addicts are just so busy looking to be forgiven and for everything to get better that they really don't understand the long journey that they're on, and it can make things worse in the beginning. So I try to keep it light in couples therapy and more focused on structure and organization. And I don't do a lot of deep, meaningful connecting and relationship stuff until some of the crisis has passed. And you know what? Crisis counseling tells me and informs me not to do really complicated work with people who are in a crisis.
And you don't mention if your significant other is getting support from a qualified therapist, but I think that's incredibly important to have the support for her to work through what she needs to work through as well. So
I just want to jump on that, Tammy. I would pick the individual therapist for the addict before I pick the couples therapist, because if he or she doesn't stop their behavior and understand what's driving it, nothing's going to get better for the couple.
Yeah, yes. But in a perfect world, the addict is seeing a therapist and the partner is seeing a supportive therapist to support their process as well.
And let me say something more about that. The reason we're doing this, guys, and everything we're doing on sex and relationship healing is to fill in these gaps. You're a partner who only has the resources for one therapist. What do? Come to one of our drop-in groups, talk to other spouses, go to some 12-step meetings. We're trying to fill in the gaps that therapy and treatment may not offer, or that you may not be able to afford or find elsewhere. Please take advantage of it. We're here and it doesn't cost you anything.
That's for sure. So that looks like all the questions. Anybody else have any?
Wow, life is solved. How fantastic is that? What time is it?
We have 8 more minutes. So okay. I mentioned at the beginning, but many of you joined us, that Rob and I will be here on December 24th and also on December 31st. So we'll be same time, same place. So we hope some of you will join us. Will be a safe place to be for an hour. And
I want to suggest to you, those of you guys who are spending time with family, sometimes it's hard to go to a meeting. Sometimes it's hard to, you don't feel comfortable leaving and going out in the snow or whatever. You can say, hey, I just want to, watch something on TV for an hour and check in with us, or, we're going to be here. You can say my family's in the other room and I'm just taking time out from the dinner because they're driving me crazy, and we'll hopefully set you a little bit sane.
Mhm.
And that's what we're trying to do. So yeah, we'll be here throughout the holidays to support.
So
Hey,
we do have
Tammy.
we have another question.
Okay, but I want to tell you something, and then
Okay.
I'll take a question. I
Okay.
just want to tell you that someone wrote me on In the Rooms when I was doing In the Rooms, which I do the same thing every Friday night at 6 o'clock LA time. And someone wrote me and said, I hear you're opening some programs in Los Angeles. Can I find out about, and I thought, was that Tammy? Is that like a setup? So since people are starting to ask, yes, we are going to be opening an intensive program in Los Angeles, probably in, I'm guessing sometime in March. We're also opening residential treatment overseas in Thailand, a 4 to 5 week program for male sex addicts, with the possibility of doing up to 2 weeks of couples work after. And we will be following with residential programs in the States and outpatient programs overseas. And, you know, this work we think is worth spreading, and we're working hard to do it. But in the meantime, we will certainly direct you to whomever is most helpful to you. And even when we are up and running, we will always give you choices about, you know, come see us, come see others. I do believe that there's plenty of room for everyone to get lots of clients and see lots of people for therapy. There's no end. In other words, I don't see competition. I see the opportunity to support more people.
And I agree. I'm only going to tag on that I really, I know the caliber of Dr. Rob and his work. And I work with him specifically because I value what he does and his ability to work with clients and make a difference in lives. So I'm really pleased that we're going to be opening these programs. We can't open them fast enough because I have to answer too many emails where I go, we don't have the program yet, but they are coming. So
but we're doing it.
Yeah,
I mean, really, guys, we are all in on treatment,
yeah,
on free support, on, you know, we are trying to create an entire world where you can get help both before treatment and after.
Yes.
I expect somebody who goes to one of our programs is going to then be going to these drop-in groups and all that. And when we get stuff going at the treatment centers, those clients will be participating in these groups. So you'll get to see people who are in treatment talking about what they're struggling with as well.
Yes.
Let's take that one question real quick.
Okay. Can you explain the common feeling of a partner of an SA early on throughout recovery, such as grief, trauma, and how an SA can be effective in supporting their grieving partner and why they grieve?
So again, I wrote a book about this called Out of the Doghouse, which explains what partners go through, but I believe the primary feelings are rage, deep, deep insecurity and betrayal, a sense of hopelessness, like I thought I knew what my life was about, and now that I found out you've been doing this, I'm not sure what we've even been doing together, or what I've been doing with you, or just questioning their whole lives and the whole time they've spent with you. A lot of sadness, a lot of unpredictable feelings. I'm angry today, I'm sad the next day. That's all healthy and normal. Detective work, going through an addict's wallet or cell phone or trying to figure out what the heck's going on, that's also very normal. So, and also I see partners almost universally want to learn as much as they can. Partners are the most avid educators about these. So the partners are the ones who buy my books, partners who want to read my book. You know, it's, you guys are often better educated than the addicts. So what I see partners actually doing is, you know, dealing with this body slam that they've been delivered and kind of struggling with that emotionally, but also trying to get the answers that they really want to find so they can figure out what to do next.
One of the things I think the grief comes in is the grief of the loss of the relationship you thought you had, the grief of the loss of the relationship you planned on having. You know, I married this person and, you know, I said I do, and we're going to have this wonderful life. And then this hits. And, you know, so this whole vision of what you thought you had and what you plan to have is, you know, is gone. So I think
there's also a personal piece to this, which is, was I not attractive enough? Was I not thin enough? Was I not a good lover, enough lover? You know, partners will question themselves deeply, because obviously in some level, if you went off and did all that, I wasn't enough for you. This is not true, but partners will do this to themselves. They'll turn themselves inside out, trying to figure out their part, or how to, you know, they're really troubled and hurt. And I consider partners of a sex addict, when they first find out about the degree of what's been going on and they really didn't know, I think it's like your child was just hit by a truck today and you don't know if you're going to live or die, because you're looking at your future, your history, your relationship. And I will say just this, that for those of us, for women in particular, who tend to be more holistic thinkers. So a guy may think, oh, I just got a blowjob, doesn't have anything to do with my relationship. But he goes home to his spouse, and she will often be thinking, well, what about our family? What about our church? What about our friends? What about our commitment? What about our children? What you did isn't this isolated thing. She will see it, and I think rightly so, as connected to everything else in our world. Whereas the addict will tend to want to say, oh, it's just this. You know, you don't just sort of trust somebody, you either trust them or you don't. And when trust is lost, that's the biggest pain, I think, to the relationships, and the hardest thing to gain back. And as Tammy said, it will never be gained back in the same way. You know, as a partner, you will never look at that man or woman again and think, well, I know they would never deliberately hurt me if they could help it, because now they have. And so you'll never look at the relationship the same way. And that is one of the losses that you have to grieve. Well, on that sad note, I just want to say to you guys, for whoever's here, thank you so much for taking the time to sit here. Please, for us, let other folks know that we're here, that we're doing this good work. Let them know about the free podcasts, the free blogs, the free drop-in groups, the free I mean, none of this costs you anything. And my just hope is to grow this community in a way that we can meet your needs and you can find the help that you need to fill in whatever piece is missing in your healing. Happy holidays, everybody. We look forward to seeing you on Christmas Eve. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.